I call this meeting of the Gloucester School Committee Ad Hoc Communications Subcommittee to order. Today is Wednesday, November 30th. We are at 2 Blackburn Drive. Consistent with Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022, this meeting will be conducted by remote participation. The public may not physically attend this meeting, but every effort will be made to allow the public to view and listen to the meeting in real time and participate when necessary. Additionally, all votes taken by the Gloucester School Committee's Ad Hoc Communications Subcommittee during this and future meetings will be by roll call vote. At this meeting, there is no public comment, therefore instructions on how to speak to this subcommittee virtually are not issued. If you would like to address the Gloucester School Committee, please comment at our regularly scheduled full committee meetings. All right. So present today are Superintendent Ben Willis, committee members Bill Melvin and Samantha Watson, and my communications person, Mike Jackson. So we begin with an update on the Gloucester Public Schools communications efforts.
Great. Good evening, everybody. Thanks, Fred. This is the first ad hoc communications subcommittee meeting we've had in quite some time, which is great to have it. I'm going to show a presentation here. Let me get this queued up. See that, this whole thing, and hit slideshow. Okay. Like we always say at the beginning of every meeting, every day matters in the Gloucester Public Schools, and everybody belongs. And that it matters. That's important whether it's a school committee meeting or a subcommittee meeting, but important every day that all our students and all our staff know that everybody belongs, and we're making sure everyone's learning every single day. So in terms of the agenda tonight, 3 topics on the agenda. We'll start with the update on our recent communications efforts, really sort of this year, and really since Mike came on. So just a few things just to capture and make some of these you see because they're public, which is good. Public communications are good, not just private communications. So a much better job on updating our GPS Facebook. And that's 2 different things. That is, putting out what students are doing, because Mike is developing connections with principals and also school secretaries to know what's going on, and then he has the capability of posting that regularly. Also putting out there about programs, events, that sort of stuff, announcements as well, important information. Another way we're doing that is by reposting what's going on in our in the school Facebook pages, or we have other Facebook pages related to specific areas. It could be sports, athletics, that sort of thing, GHS, performing arts, that sort of thing. So and better able to pay attention to those and make sure we share them broadly. So also been doing meetings with stakeholders for input on how the district can improve communication. Just sort of that is really our communications working group primarily, which is a GEF. GEF helped us to organize that group, and they've been giving us input on everything from the plan we'll share with you tonight to a survey we've gotten out and things like that. There's sort of an ongoing group that's helping us and been very, very helpful. It's a mostly communications professionals who are also parents in our schools now or have been. Not all of them are parents in our schools of students in our schools, but almost all of them are, which is great. That leads us to the next one. We have launched our effort to learn from, and you'll hear more about this in terms of when we share the plan. We have started our effort to reach out to stakeholders who are no longer in our schools or were in our schools and left our schools, to learn from them why they made another choice, and what they thought was good about our schools, what they were looking for that they didn't think they could get in our schools. And you'll hear more about that in a little bit. And then ongoing work of sending messages to families about everything from vaccination efforts to the Thanksgiving Day message, but sort of ongoing and regular, trying to make it more regular communications. Now that we're sort of we're past we did a lot of pandemic crisis related messages for the last 2 years, but now we can just give people news and make sure we're keeping up to date on things that are happening. And then also, working more closely with the Gloucester Daily Times and can follow up with them in a more timely fashion. We're in the final stages of completing a K-5 introductory video to share broadly. That's share with the community, but also share with prospective parents. So we've been getting feedback on that from our parents group, from our communications working group, and now working with the producer to finalize that in terms of finalizing the music, my final edits, and just sort of really final tweaks on that. And then our ongoing work with our parent leaders group, which is a monthly meeting, is going on for, since I got here, is about increasing participation from families that are typically underrepresented. And that's one of our, key areas in the plan for ongoing improvement. So that's our ongoing efforts. Just want to share those and sort of get folks up to speed, things that we've been able to do now that we have a little more capacity, do better sort of thing. So any questions on that before I move on? Oh,
Just
okay.
one
Yeah.
question.
Mhm.
Have you gotten any ideas on how, or has anything been put into motion on how to increase participation from typically underrepresented?
Yes and no, in the sense that there's nothing specific in action that people we've directed people to take, that sort of thing. That school by school, folks are trying things out. The PTO conversation, the parent leaders conversation was very helpful in terms of talking about some of the barriers. So just to give you an example of sort of flavor of that conversation was about, transportation is a barrier, timing is a barrier, childcare is a barrier, food is a draw, specific topics can be a draw, that sort of stuff, but sort of that's where the conversation is. And so now the next step will be a couple things on that. One is working with that group to make sure that group is large. In the first year or so of the pandemic, folks were coming to those for the participation in that group was very high, partially because people had more flexible work schedules. Now that's passed, it's harder for folks to join in. So actually that's one of the areas where we're trying to get more parent engagement as well. So, but the next step will be for them to sort of have a dual charge there. One, work with principals on this, okay, and school staff, but also how do you work to support each other on learning what to do and how to do better. So it's sort of we're operating in two levels there, but just had 2 meetings on that so far, and we'll continue our monthly work on that. Okay, great. So now you have in front of you, I'm going to go over the ongoing 3-year plan for ongoing improvement in the communications part. Folks will remember that our plan for ongoing improvement has 3 chunks: student belonging, learning, support, and instruction, which you've already approved and we're operating on. We'll build our budget on that. Operations, those are still being developed with those departments there. Tonight, we're talking about the communications and community engagement piece of that. Okay. And that work around communication and community engagement is meant to reinforce the work we're doing across our schools, including our strategic priorities, which you see there. Student belonging and engagement in school, strength instruction, and better connecting general ed and special education, strengthen student social, emotional learning, and mental health support, and then strengthening special education to improve coordination of services. And all that, of course, done well, leads to what we'll need to be communicating about is the ongoing depth of student learning and improve academic achievement and how our students are doing. So, but that's what the plan for ongoing improvement for communications needs to be focused on and based in, really. So here's the future state we're working towards. I'll let you folks read it. I won't read it to you because you can do that. But it's a big piece of it is that we're regularly and consistently communicating. Okay. And we're regularly and consistently communicating a few different things. One, examples of the great the great work students are doing every day in our schools, along with our staff, our progress, our priorities, and our progress along those priorities. Okay. Our priorities also point out what we aren't doing well enough, so it isn't just about good news, but it's about being open and clear with folks about what's the important work we're doing. So another area is that we are a resource for families and the community on parenting, education, student well-being, so that we're doing sort of more small and large things around those topics. Basically, we're a great resource. We have a lot of expertise. And parents always, families always can use more support. Either learning from us and the speakers we bring in, or the things about, it could be, supporting your student, figuring out their next step after high school. And those can be big events like we're doing with Lynn Lyons next week on December 6th. Or they can be smaller ones, school-based ones, school-focused ones. But part of that is making sure that at the district level, we're supporting folks and pulling those off, but also communicating about them and following up afterward. So people know about those and attend, but also learn from them. And then the last piece is that we want to make sure that we're communicating in a way that, because we're sharing the good news and the great progress we're making, that and the accomplishments of our student, staff, and schools, that Gloucester as a whole, both our school families, but the whole community is proud of and celebrates our students, our staff, and our schools. So that's ultimately the goal here, is to make sure that we're more open about the great work that's happening. People get a real clear picture of all that great work. So that's what we're working towards. We have some of those things in place. We're sort of, it's a work in progress, but that's where we want to be. And we're there to some degree at this point, but we'll continue to get to move towards that. So that's how we operate. Questions? And then the next two slides are just sharing with you sort of where we are in terms of what we think about as our goals. So the first part of communicating well is learning about just how people perceive things now. Okay. And how people who, as I mentioned before, have opted out of our schools perceive our schools and why they made those decisions, and especially how from those folks who actually hear what they think of our schools, both what they value and what they see can be improved. That helps us not only do our work better, but helps us make sure that, especially if there's a disconnect between what people are thinking and the way we're operating, we want to use communications and community engagement to rectify that. We want people's perceptions of our schools to be an accurate reflection of what's really happening. We'll learn both from, again, families who choose other schools and families who are in our schools as well. Goal 2 is then you take that information and also what we already know about our schools, and we want to identify key messages that will communicate regularly and consistently. What's really important in communications is we're repeating, and our communications is regular, consistent, and repetitive in a way that people that it gets across. Saying one thing once doesn't make a dent, especially in our world today where people are getting so many things coming their way. So rather than having 20 things we want to say, we want to sort of focus that on what are the most important things we want people to know and learn about our schools. So that's identifying, that's why I call them key messages. That's work that will happen, hopefully to some degree with this group, but also with the communications working group. But that's a result of goal number 1. Okay. And then we have 2 more goals. This is about communicating regularly and consistently. So this is the blocking and tackling the actual, how we're going to do these things. But what's key there is regularly and consistently. And you see a variety of, vehicles, direct messages, school messenger, and that can be text and email, improving our social media. That could include developing Instagram account, feed, what do you call it?
Yeah.
Feed?
No, just
Account. Okay, all right, okay. All right. We got Facebook page, Facebook discussion. I don't know what the Insta noun is. Okay, yeah. Begin utilizing video more to a greater extent. Another piece on that is making sure that we are educating folks and engaging them about the plan for ongoing improvement. I mean, that's where we're headed. We want people to know where we're headed. And then another thing that we're considering, I mean, just in the initial stage of this, and this came up in terms of work with the working group, is right now our schools, any given within a school or across schools, use a variety of platforms for communicating. Could be through Google, it could be through School Messenger, it could be through texts, it could be through Class Dojo. There's at least 2 other ones I'm not thinking of. And if you have multiple students, or even if you don't, having communication come from a variety of angles can be complicated and not as effective. So, but we'll have to figure out how we do that, because right now it's a lot more vehicles to communicating, but again, that can be confusing for parents. So, I've got one more goal. Let me go over that, or questions. One more goal? Okay, all right. And then the last one is, this is about sort of supporting, families. So, sorry, that's. Got it, yep. So, A there is more about simplifying school and teacher communication, by having, narrowing down our communications, tools. B is how do you help teachers, support, how do we make sure that the back to school curriculum, meet the teacher night is, effective from a parent standpoint in terms of, and a family standpoint, the information they want to know and need to know, it's helpful to them. And can we help our teachers so we are more consistent when we do that? More consistently providing information that parents really want and need. Okay, because that's a crucial evening, obviously. And so how can we do that better? And then the last piece here is just the notion of when we do have events or forums, which are either district supported or school based, how do we make sure that we're helping folks not only be aware of it, but attend it, access it in terms of language, and then also after the fact, for those folks who couldn't go, that they have access to those materials or information and they can utilize it themselves, that sort of thing. So those are the 4 goals that we have. Whereas, well, I guess it's sort of the same in terms of when I presented the plan for ongoing improvement on curriculum instruction and learning, there was, it wasn't, this is the plan done, because we were still working on it. Same thing here, this is sort of, it's not the first draft, but this is the result of a whole bunch of work, but open to thoughts and comments. And that's really what I see the next part of the meeting being about is so to open that discussion about either the work we're doing now, what we started with, or this plan going forward. So I'll just hand it over to you, Laura.
Sure. So anyone have any questions or comments or ideas?
So, just because I'm Madam Chair, have we already sent out a survey to people that I think we've already said it, but have we sent out a survey to those that have left the school system? And
So that's out there now, it's active, and we're actually gonna re-communicate about it. We're probably communicate like 3 times at least to make sure that we get enough people responding. Okay, so we didn't just folks who had 8th graders over the last 3 years who chose not to have their child go to 9th grade at Water High. Okay, now as we go forward, we will then look at folks who didn't chose not to transition to O'Malley. Okay, so 5th to 6th, and then down the road we're going to try to capture folks who opted to go to something else than our elementary schools, who didn't go to elementary schools. So because there's going to be different information from each, but that survey's out there now about the folks who didn't go from 8th to 9th. Yeah. Another question there? Or?
No.
Okay. All right.
I'm glad to comment more, Megan. I think sometimes we get, hearing you say, well, we're trying to narrow down the platform that we communicate through, or at least look at that. I think it's important. Sometimes it's so much information. We see so much from the school, some of it duplicated, that it kind of gets, I think we can get a little message.
Yeah.
I'd like to see just the communication process, for lack of a better word, kind of streamlined it. Made it more on point. And single source versus 100 sources. Stuff like that.
Yeah, and it's especially complicated when you get into middle and high school, where there are likely multiple teachers communicating, right? And so, it's schools are complicated organization around communication, because it's sort of, there's a loose affiliation between, we have these different affiliations. We have a school one, like if I'm a parent, okay, and I've got 2 students, one student at O'Malley, one student at elementary school. Okay, I have that affiliation in the whole school, so the school has things that happen across grades, right, that they're communicating. But then you have the individual teachers, and coordinating communications on those things it isn't done very often, because it is this loose affiliate. What I mean by loose affiliation, meaning we're not from a central location, the principal or district office, mandating what people communicate. They communicate about their class whenever they want, which is the right way it should be. But that does make this challenge, which is, isn't easy to solve, which is how do you make it so people know what's most important and, and how am I getting what's most important? So I'm just straight the challenge,
Yeah.
not trying to explain it away.
Well, and I mean, I don't know which apps you guys use, but
Meaning Beam in school.
yeah, so
Yeah.
like every school and every teacher, now that there's apps and different platforms, sort of uses different ones based on their preferences.
Yeah.
And so last year I had a teacher that used Seesaw, now this year
Right,
one
yep.
uses Flumes. And so next year, if I have two kids in there, they're both gonna be using two different
Right,
apps, and I have to have
Yeah.
two different apps on my phone, and I have to look at both of them, plus now the school also uses Seesaw, and then there's emails.
Right.
It's like
Yes,
your head is
exactly right.
spinning,
right.
It's grade by grade and teacher by
teacher by teacher.
Yeah.
And so, yes, so like having a goal of like, okay, this is the only platform we're gonna use, so that parents aren't missing things, because it's so
Right.
easy to miss things.
Yeah.
The other thing that I would add to that, and you have it in here, but I think, really focusing on different ways of communicating, like not just email, right? Like the video, using videos, using platforms, having, things that are just more clickable and shareable than the emails. I think it really needs to be our priority. And like I said to you last meeting, my emails from Talina, my emails from you, all go to an updates tab.
Right.
It doesn't matter how many times I say this is a priority, please put this in my inbox, it gets buried.
Right.
And so I think we have to find other ways to make sure that parents are seeing things, because there are days before sometimes I see an email from you.
Right.
So I'm not sure how to,
Why is that? Because it gets backed up into.
do you know how like Gmail has,
And social.
promotion, social updates, and then inbox or priority or whatever it is? For some reason, when a group email, I'm sure if Ben sent me an individual email, it would go to my priority inbox. Maybe.
Let's make sure that happens.
But if it's like a group, like a whole district email,
Yeah.
it goes to my updates tab. And I don't necessarily check that super often, because
Right.
there's not much that I need to look in that for.
Yeah.
And so it could be a couple days before I actually go in and see an email from Talina, an email from Ben, that might be time sensitive or something that I would like to see that day.
Right.
And so I think as a district, we really have to sort of think through, like, what's the best way to communicate with people?
Yeah.
What's the most effective way, right? Like,
Right. Here's one example that some schools, so a couple things. One, that multiple apps now being available for teachers and others to communicate, Fast Dojo, Seesaw, those are actually learning tools that now can function as communication tools. It's pretty new development, honestly,
Yeah.
So, but you're right that we need to sort it out, and that's why that's here, right? So just one thing we've been learning, is that to send a text when email goes out.
yeah,
Check, email from Dr. Immel, sort of thing.
Yep.
Please check, your inbox, that sort of thing.
Yep.
That's one thing we've learned. And then so a couple of schools have been, doing that, and they're sharing it. And then, another piece of that related to texts is, we know that texts have been working quite a bit. We've been using text communication with our English learner families quite a bit. And that's more, we found that that's a more effective way to communicate with many of our English learner families. One, it translates it automatically, which our system-wide emails do too, but it's just, and that all often can be check email or, please call or something like that, but so those are things we're learning, right?
mhm,
And it speaks to, email and all the other versions aren't necessarily
Yeah.
just the right way.
Yeah.
And I think it speaks to, I would say, just how many, it's sort of like, it's like how many touches, right? How many
Yeah.
times you touch
Right.
the parent or the family
Right.
via email, because it's interesting, when Mike sent out the thing about the COVID test, that came to my inbox, but the things that, so GPS from Mike came to my inbox, from you, it does for some reason. So it may also be training us how to do our settings right, there's something happening on our ends, right?
Yeah.
That has the settings, but it's also just like the text. Another piece of this, which is not in here and is sort of part of it, a tangential, is Ride 360.
Right, right.
Ride 360,
Yep.
which is our app
Great.
for the school buses.
Oh, yeah.
Which has been rolled out. And I just want to mention to you in this sort of communications forum, one interesting thing about that app, which you may not be aware of, is that it will text you if, you know, the bus is late or whatever, but then that text is gone. There's no way to access that text. You can't go back and say, what did they say? Did they say it's hot? It's gone.
I mean, it's gone, or it's gone.
You can
see
never,
it for a certain amount of time, like,
if you, once you click on it and have read it,
Yeah.
it disappears. It's not in your text. It's in the app.
Right, so it's in the app. You can go to the app.
No, if you go to the app and you go to messages, there's nothing there. There's some,
Wait, so how do you see it in the first place?
it comes up
as
On-
a text.
as a
Notification.
alert from your app. From the app, you see the text, bus running 10 minutes late. You put down your phone, you go to find it, you've read it. You go into the app, I've looked for messages, I look in all the different tabs that seem likely. Nothing's there.
But that's not conducive, I mean, that's not isolated to just Gloucester, I mean, that's a platform.
Yeah, well,
But
so like the
But
point,
the question is, could it be a setting?
yeah,
Could it be a setting?
on like
We
the
can get
district
some
center.
Right, so just as a, because I think that's a fantastic communication tool and parents are using it, at least
Right.
in my world,
But they are, yeah.
but it's incomplete.
Yeah.
I know it's still new.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Just
Good,
to say.
very helpful, yeah. we use that.
I also want to ask you though, because you've spoken so highly about the animations that you were learning about at
Yeah.
the NSC
Yeah.
conference, and I don't know if Mike also want to introduce Mike
Right.
at this meeting. So there's two things. If you wanted to talk about that in some brief way, which I think is cool. And then we can talk-
It kind of dovetails into ways to communicate. I never gave a lot of credence to communication, but I do now. And I also give a lot of credence since I've been on the school committee, the data. And I say to myself, one of the breakout sessions talked about what percentage of parents read emails that are sent from the school. It's much lower than I thought. I thought it'd be like, 80% of the parents read those emails. It's tremendous. And so
They're
that
too wordy.
yeah, and that got me thinking, well, what ways would parents read? What's the best way to communicate to parents? And the very 60-year-old guy, I'm thinking, oh, email or text, that's it for me. If I don't get it done, I'm trying to get it. But there's so many more ways to communicate now. And one of the ways is this video animation that's been developed by Lincoln or Sudbury students that allows for, let's say, the COVID issue, for instance, and it just talks about, it's kind of a template, an animation template that you can put your own graphics into, like you could, I would say, West Parish School. You could use teacher voices to kind of send a message about the response to COVID, or, you know, what we're learning this week, and it's just very interesting, very, very innovative. You know, I forget the name of it off the top of my head. but
If
it's-
you share it with me,
Yeah, sure.
I haven't shared, I don't think I shared with Mike, he was away for a
I'll
bit,
send it
but
to Mike as well.
Yeah.
It's-
I can forward some.
Yeah, and it's just, the hit rate on it was like 80%.
Yeah.
Parents would read, you know, the kids wanted to hear their teachers' voices. The parents were interested in the animation, and it allowed for some cross-cultural type characters, but it was all put together by, in the Sudbury School District, when you think about Lincoln Sudbury, it's only K, or Sudbury, it's only K through 8. Then it becomes Lincoln Sudbury.
Right.
So, they don't use Facebook, they don't use any of the standard platforms, they use like this video messaging type stuff. It's very innovative, and it just got me thinking, well, that's really cool.
Can I just ask, does it go to the phone, does it go via email, or how
I
does it?
think it goes via email, but then I think you get a text that says,
Like that?
yeah, see that, you know, and
Yeah.
it's just very, very cool type of, it got me thinking,
Yeah.
well, there's more creative ways to.
Do you remember, when, we were trying to encourage people to vote yes, or the Vote Yes Committee was encouraging people to vote yes, and there was the whiteboard,
Oh, yeah.
animation?
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember. So there's the whiteboard and it was a way to sort of educate the community about a topic, but it was very well done and it was very engaging and it kept you interested. It was just somebody sort of drawing and writing on a whiteboard. Do you remember that?
I know that. I
And
don't remember that specific, I know that approach.
And it was amazing
Yeah.
and people were like, oh, this is so helpful. It really helps distill this information in a really easily digestible, creative way. That's not an email, that's not just a Facebook post. It can be shared via Facebook and all of those things, but it was just a really nice way to get a message across.
Yeah, even in the business, but they work for a company that's called OEM contract manufacturing, so they talk about supply and, you know, from what they call a napkin, there's a presentation where, you know, guys are drawing something out, there's a new piece of equipment, so here's a napkin, to finished product, and putting that in animation, the hits on that,
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's how we learn, that's how we watch, that's how we.
Yeah.
study. But I
Would
guess,
be a little bit more outside of the box. I think
Yeah.
is probably you can make these animated videos bilingual, so that, you know, it's just all developed by a guy that was a newscaster at Channel 7 in Boston. His name, but it's, and he engaged, because these kids were in the Lincoln schools, talked with superintendent brought into the school, he brought into the next thing you know, they produced a couple of videos, and it's very well received. So, and in its infancy, but it's just another tool to communicate.
just while I'm thinking about, this is a very low tech, like that, that's a lovely sort of.
Yeah,
you know, Not high tech, but, higher tech, one just small, tweak that I think, when, so when emails come that is to me, say something, I get them in my inbox, I know what they are. Something about the formatting, it's, I mean, it's sort of, like, I can't read it on my phone, it's too small, because something about the way it's just a basic formatting. So I have to read it on my computer. And so that's already a step. I'm not always gonna take, and I don't know, it's something about, I've seen this before in certain emails where they're all flush left and small fonts on your phone. And I don't know if that's happening for other schools. It's not a question of what's the text, it's a great bullet point, there's dates or things, you know, but it is the kind of thing that makes you have to do it more than once, to actually observe it, and not.
You know, that's a very high hurdle.
Right,
Can you forward me one of those that renders that way?
sure. That's-
Because, for example, my Thanksgiving message, I hope you saw, I probably didn't, it's there, I promise you.
Very well.
Like if like, I think we're probably using the same system. And if it's renders for me, which I think, I don't know, so,
Oh, yours, I think, don't have that issue.
right, so if you can forward it to me, we can
Yeah.
figure out and then suggest, so,
Yeah,
because, yeah, you don't want to have someone look at it on a home computer.
right, just a small tweak, I think that can help.
And it would be interesting to know whether it's being specific or maybe that happens.
Yeah, and it could be just the way it's formatted, the way it's copy and pasted, it could be something simple as that, you know?
It's
I mean,
something
I don't
that
know.
you should copy and paste this from me.
Yeah,
And if other parents said, hey, you know,
No. it doesn't. Nobody's ever done it. But we do talk about the live 360 question.
Yeah,
It's like, did you see that? What's the thing?
right.
Mike, would you mind sort of officially introducing yourself and your position?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My name is Mike Gaffney. I started the second week of September. I am the community engagement and communications coordinator. So I'm located here in the district office. I work a lot with Ben and the administrators. I also I've gotten to meet with all the principals so far. I met with one principal each week, trying to get the feel for each of the schools and sort of what they saw as some of the communication challenges and what we could do in the district office to help them get the word out about some of the things going on in the schools. My next goal in terms of stakeholders is really to reach out to the PTOs, hear from the parents themselves. We meet in the meetings each month with Ben where we're meeting with parent leaders, but, that's a big group right there, and I'd really like to meet with them, at least individually or on a school level, to hear from the parents and, see what we can do as we try to figure out some of those programs and ideas to get those underrepresented families, to participate more. Gloucester's been great to me. I hear that it's a tough city for outsiders, but I've come in, I really feel welcome. Great teachers, great kids. And I'm happy to hear from this new group, things, as from some community members, what we can do, or what I can do specifically to really, sorry, been a very productive conversation, taking diligent notes here.
And well, outstanding penmanship.
No, it's hard to read it, I have to sometimes. Really
Do you have is your background?
Oh, yes, so my background, I was a journalist for, close to 2 decades, actually, with covering dailies and weekly, across Northeast Massachusetts, and, it's been tough for journalists lately, so I have some of the skills I think that make a good fit for this job, and I really am happy to be here and get to know the city better and the schools. Thank you.
I just sort of have a thought about, connecting with PTOs. Specifically around communication.
Sure.
When I think about PTOs, I think that they're probably the most engaged group of parents in the school. And so I guess I'm curious, like, how can we reach and understand more about some of the barriers? Because I don't think that they're the best group to talk about barriers of communication, because they're so involved in school, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, they all have also tried to communicate a bunch, as they know the struggles with it, I think.
Yeah.
And I think another piece is, I think, this is always the way it's been, I've experienced it is they're often, the folks who are involved in the PTO can be good connectors, can be folks that other folks listen to. You hope, not always the case, that if they're reaching out about something, people are paying attention, and maybe even more so than they pay attention to me, that sort of thing, But, it probably goes in order of, like, they pay close attention to communication from teacher, and then probably principal, and then who knows what, right? I mean, and I hope PTO, apparently that's right. But I think we go about it with the humility, not that we have the answers, but actually as a group, especially if part of that work is reaching out to people and learning from them, so what we try to approach it as is like, how do we get information about what the barriers are? How do we try things out? So example, transportation, are you giving out CADA cards, or are you setting up, rides with folks, that sort of stuff. So the work there, I think, is more, trial and attempt, as opposed to that group has the answers and this is what we're going to do. So I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
But I think it's the approach isn't like we just come with the answers and we from on high just do them. And I don't think if folks knew what to do, we wouldn't have the challenge we have. But it's not an easy challenge.
And I would say PTOs, I know what you're saying, that those are the most involved families, but they're also people who are like actively engaged and trying to engage that community all year long,
Yeah.
So different schools are different. We've discussed this, but at a school like Freeman, it's, there's so many different groups, and the PTO has to sort of, they are coming up with creative solutions all the time because they have to. And so I think they're a great resource for sort of what worked and what didn't. They're not gonna have all the answers, but I think they have a lot of wisdom.
Yeah. So I'm looking at it from a pretty different perspective, and I'm curious. Like, I'm thinking about it for the hardest to reach families, right? The ones that need to be engaged the most. Right. And this is, I think the work that the PTOs do are incredible, but I think for families who might be on the fringe might be intimidated by people who are super involved.
Right.
And so I'm curious if it makes sense to connect with school social workers around like, okay, those families who are really hard to reach, really hard to engage, what do you think the barriers are? I don't think the PTO has the answer to that.
Right, so it's sort of a different question.
No, so I agree with you, and if, I don't, I hope, I don't intend to communicate that they have the answer for
No,
all
no,
for
no,
those
no, no.
questions, especially this question, which is a, it's a countrywide question, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so one of the things that came up in the, I'm talking about in the parent leaders group was, one of the schools was working with their guidance counselor on some outreach, or no, it was a teacher. And, and excuse me, the lesson there for the group was work with staff as well, on getting the word out, on how to get the word out. So, because learning from the staff.
Yeah.
So that could be guidance counselor, it could be teacher, that sort of thing, but so there was also, and again, that came from one person in one school, but the lesson goes across the whole group,
Yeah.
right? And at this point, it's a small group and it's getting bigger, but, and then the other piece on that, again, this is one of the most difficult challenges in communication in our school, in any school, right? Is that the work that we're doing with our EL coffees, for example.
Yeah.
Building that trust, that relationship,
Yeah.
but, not only being welcoming, but also providing information and some resources. So that's also another effort we have on specifically the challenge you're talking about, so it's not, I don't intend to say it's all, but the PTO figuring it out. It's not, it can be. It's gotta be the PTOs helping each other learn, but then also PTOs working with teachers and staff and principals, and then our support as well. So it's gotta come from a lot of angles because it's
Yeah.
very, very difficult. So I totally appreciate that challenge. I mean, the importance of that,
Yeah.
of your question.
I do appreciate that. The way I look at it sometimes is, at least from my position, the more people you meet, the more you're gonna hear.
Yeah.
And so the more, my plan is to start with the DPOs and then hear from them.
Yeah.
And then sort of foolish to see people within the school.
Yeah.
Which I've already sort of done. Here and there, with parents who have concerns, that I've heard either from the administrator or someone that I've had hour-long conversations with these people. That been very illuminating, and that's what I did in my previous job, and I use those skills here to really get people to talk and trust me, and no one's gonna get in trouble here.
Right.
It's just let me know what's on your mind, and we're gonna try to fight it with it. Come up with a solution.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great. I think, at least at West Parish, right, like a volunteer thing will go out, and at West Parish, within 3 minutes, every volunteer slot is filled,
Well,
right, and it's usually the same people.
Right.
Right, it's consistently the same people.
Right.
And so, and I guess that's just sort of my point, is that like, the outreach, I think, really has to be sort of broad and really think about it in a creative way. Because there are people who are really involved.
Right.
And then there are people who have a lot of barriers to being involved.
Right. And also, you have to sort of raise the awareness of like, that's a great strength. Using West Paris as an example, and also it has some drawbacks.
100%.
Because you shut out folks who are
Yeah.
either, for any number of reasons, aren't quite as fast, right? So until you actually name that as a challenge or an
Yeah.
issue to be addressed, because from the face of it, it's a huge strength, like
Yeah.
boom, right?
100%.
Right? But until you address the challenges, who can't sign up, or who's being excluded, or who isn't even hearing about it.
Right.
Then you can't,
Yeah.
do something different.
Yeah.
Because part of that difference is maybe you put up, I'm just making this up, right? To say there are 30 spots you need, you put up 20 or
Right.
15
Yeah.
for those first, one that grab.
Yeah.
And then you're working with others, or you let them know ahead of time through
Yeah.
other means,
Right.
anyway, there's lots of ways to do it,
100%.
but the first piece is, and I think this is the importance of raising it with the PTOs and the principals. I mean, the principals, actually, the 5 elementary principals and Andrew Perella, the director of the preschool, really just worked on this today in a leadership team meeting about family engagement
Yeah.
and outreach, right? But until we raise it with them and also with the parent leaders as an issue.
Yeah.
I will say this, I mean, they know that it's the usual suspects,
Yeah,
they know that, right?
But I think even just that idea of like giving, if you know that there are people who are who need a minute to look at their schedule, right? Even just the people who are working full time, right? To be like, I would like to do that, but I need like an hour to adjust a couple of things.
Right.
I would like to volunteer, but I need to adjust like a little bit of my schedule, right? Like finding other ways to engage them, like save some spots for those parents, like
Yes,
so that
right.
they can also sign up, right?
Yeah.
Like not everybody at the drop of a hat can sign up to volunteer for things. And so I think that's the creative sort of thought process that I'd like the district to have around engaging people who can't just like very quickly say, yes, I can do that.
Right.
Because that's a privilege. It's a privilege to be able to just say, yes, I can do that.
So a follow on for that, for me, because we have a very different experience
Yeah.
at being, but, look, it's a privilege to be able to walk into the school in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
Right, I work in the library, you know, many families cannot
Yep.
go into the school building in the middle of the day, right, the workday. It may also be creating opportunities for outside the workday.
Yeah.
For other people to be able to participate, right, like, it's a very rare thing. My mother certainly wasn't able to walk into my school ever during the day. So having opportunities where people who are regular work schedule might be able to get engaged.
Yeah.
And that's not a communications question so much, so, but it is a way of trying to include, maybe somehow.
Yeah.
Right?
The end game being, sorry.
What were you gonna say?
No, go ahead.
I just want to volunteer in the library. Let me be clear about that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Sorry,
right.
what-
It's just, yeah. You're not employed in the library, okay?
No, he is-
I didn't want Bill to catch that, okay? Volunteer in the library, okay, which, and we're thankful, there's nothing wrong with it, I just want to be clarified. But everything else was that right on.
Taste testings and.
Yeah, they're all during the day.
They're all during the day.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a very specific.
Yeah.
uh,
And so how can we engage families outside of those work time?
Yeah.
And just even the impact of a kiddo seeing their parent,
it's a big deal.
it's a huge deal.
Yeah.
It's a huge deal to see their parent in their school, engaging with other kids, engaging with staff,
The
like
parents who want to.
it's a big deal. So if we can find, and it's not a communications issue necessarily, but it's a community engagement issue,
Right.
right? So I think like it's very much in his wheelhouse.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's significant, when new families, I can say from my experience, when new parents do come in, they do. It's a really nice big thing.
Yeah.
When new parents come in, we have a holiday store, and then when new parents come in to work in the holiday store, it's a really welcomed.
Yeah.
thing.
The end goal being, we wanna make it available to as many different groups.
Yeah.
To volunteer in school. It's okay for Bill Melvin to say that a lot from volunteering. The Christmas wrap or that. Let's get some other people involved, and like you said, I mean, for a lot of kids to see their parent who might never be involved in school.
Yeah.
As some sort of event. Priceless.
It is, the impact is huge. It really is.
So,
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Well, so, before we move on, most of this work, whether it's me or Mike or together or principals or others, is activating other folks. One very specific is having, principals and teachers send more things to Mike, because there's now a good outlet, so it's because, and the rationale for that is we don't have a marketing communications department, like a private company will, and we never will, we have one more person helping out. So now, and we have, and we want to do things really well, so, but there are limiting factors, anyway, and then that's not to put damper on things, but just in terms of, we will get better, we will do more things. But still, it's more about activating others as opposed to just having a team that can do all this stuff,
Right.
yeah.
schools, I mean, this is something I've thought about, for a few years, ever since, we had a babysitter graduate from high school and went into television. I mean, there may be students in the high school who, I mean, animation, I don't know if they're on the animation in high school, but like that's, I mean.
Yeah,
I taught that when so many kids love that and they're read at it and it's easy for them and it could be a fun, I mean, GEF would know how to activate that, so So it's nice.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
That could be
That's great.
engaging, fun thing for us. So,
More of a. See your policies. I mean, as far as this committee goes, how often do we meet? Is it just kind of?
Once every 2 years, about. Once every 2 years.
Oh, when COVID happened, it was just like.
Yeah.
we met for the meeting policy.
Yeah,
yeah.
But we don't meet often.
Yeah.
Because we're, then correct me, but you know, like, they're doing the work of the communications
Yeah.
for the district, but we're sort of giving input
Yeah.
as here, and then we also have this sort of new piece of the school committee, which is the Facebook group, which we never had a social media presence. Samantha and I came up with the deal. So for that, we have to create a policy. And now, and so that's the sort of small policy that we operate. In coordination across the schools with the, with GPS, and Grant runs that site.
Yeah.
So it's.
He's an administrator, but you guys can post. Yeah.
But he
Put the contact in and.
Right. But we have to, anyway, so it's through GPS.
But Grant at this point doesn't, I mean, we had Grant adding content on there before.
Right.
What we have now is Mike just adds content to the Gloucester Schools Facebook, and if you guys want to reshare, you can.
Yeah.
Okay, and that, anything that's on there, you guys can of course share.
Right.
And then the other piece is, but at this point, you guys should be, the only folks posting are you guys, I mean, now Bill, and that's,
But Grant still has to grant access.
that's all, that's all, that's what I'm saying, the only, he's granted access, he's essentially administrator, but he's not doing
Right,
more than that, and Mike, and Mike isn't either, so.
right.
um,
But I just wanted to be clear that that's still under the rubric, we don't operate, like the content of the administration administers.
Well, right, but but I don't understand that the relevance of that, because really, we're not doing anything at this point.
Right, I guess, I don't know, for me, the way it was set up, and Sam, correct me, it was that it was set up with certain limitations on how we post and things like that, like, so for instance,
but-
I'll just give an example.
Yeah.
Right now, today I went to the Facebook group to just check information, it's outdated, but I can't change it. I have to write to Grant
Oh,
to change it.
right to Mike, right,
Okay.
yeah, don't write to Grant anymore, write to Mike.
Oh, okay.
I can, yeah.
You mean like if you have like the date or not the date, but like the number of students or
The
the
about
mission,
section.
the about section, right.
Yeah, I do have privileges,
Okay, right, because.
Yeah, that's with
Yeah.
Mike, yeah, but those things are pretty limited updates,
Right.
those limited changes.
Because we can't do it, like it's 2020 on there.
Yeah,
So that's all.
so
it's
that's,
just-
The
Yeah.
other thing to know about Facebook or social media policy and the Facebook page is that nobody can comment on any posts that we have. We shut up all comments
On the school committee.
on the school
Okay,
committee
so
page.
we're going to item 3 there. So we should-
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
are we-
that's okay, no, that's fine. So we're
Um,
welcoming Bill Melvin to the Ad Hoc Communications Subcommittee.
Yeah,
And I'm hoping to make you, maybe the main poster on the Facebook group, but we'll discuss that.
because I am of no help,
Because Sam hasn't, yeah, and
not a
I'm,
Facebook.
and you're a very creative
Poster.
Facebooker. But go on.
No, that's okay. So it's not a means of communication for people to communicate with us. It is a means of communication for us to put information out, outgoing information, and it's only it's not opinion based, if that makes sense. It's just like, here's our meeting time. Here is an event. There is no like conversation or discussion around something that we're voting on. It's purely information based, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
makes sense.
it's just another vehicle for
Yeah,
us to.
And so nobody responds to questions on there, and we do
Yeah.
get
Yeah,
messages.
there's no comments.
Well, we turn off comments.
Yeah.
But also if people message us, which they do, they get automated, like, we don't communicate this way, we write to the school committee.
that is the way you want it.
That is the way we want it.
Come on,
Conversation.
you guys don't want to govern by Facebook.
Oh, and
Right.
It's just, that's one of the most significant pieces of when we set this up, is that there's not a mode of conversation.
Yeah.
is just a mode.
or, and really deliberation.
And,
Yeah,
oh, yeah,
deliberation is the real big piece there, right?
right, so we don't deliberate, we just put out facts.
Do you think that, I mean, just asking, general conversation, do you think that people look at that and people, I mean, like, nobody ever, if we put stuff out on the school committee, we don't see a lot of,
Likes,
likes or
no.
anything, but it's not the type of content that you're gonna get.
Well, but you can, but for example, you put anything that we put on our Facebook page, you guys can
Yeah,
repost. So I guess I wanna dig a little bit on the facts and information piece, because like, if it's a photo from an event, like, whatever, I mean, even a sporting event, that's,
We do all
No, no,
that,
no,
yeah.
yeah,
that's included
yes,
in that, right?
but I just sort of mean in terms of school committee business.
Yeah.
There's no like,
Yeah.
What do you think of this?
what do you think of this?
Right.
We're not, there's no engagement. It is
Yeah.
just purely like,
Well,
here's our meeting time, this is our agenda. There's not,
And sharing from fishermen, I
Yeah.
mean, the theater, like this, the Gilmer.
Yeah.
There's a list of, approved. And interestingly, the GPS site, we've had a question about we do things from organizations that work in the schools. So backyard growers or GEF, like sort of, but not. I don't.
Like, we might put something out there about the open door, for example.
Right, I don't-
Like, we will, it's a school partner, it's something vital to the community, vital to our families, we might put something like that. Is that an example, of something that you guys might be hesitant on?
I would do ones you do,
Oh,
Yeah.
but I don't post from the open door, I don't post from cops and kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause I thought about that.
No,
cops and kids.
the way the policy is written.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry, I'm not thinking.
But once you post it, once it's on the Boston Public Schools Facebook page, then I take it as you will.
We can post it.
It's been shared by the.
I think we just can't promote a nonprofit
Right,
because that means we'd like,
it's a very fine.
it's a fine line, because then it's like, we have to promote all nonprofits,
Right.
so it's like, we can't favor one or show that we're favoring one, but if the Gloucester Public Schools post something, we can share it.
Yeah.
But as a
Right.
school committee, I
So
think our
what-
policy
What-
is like,
What about if, and I don't have policy in front of me, but what about like, it's established partner of ours, that they're doing, like, cops and kids doing things, with us.
Yeah, that could change. I'm pretty hesitant about that because
Okay.
there's a lot of resistance to setting up this group at all.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
So
Yeah.
I try to tread lightly. The other thing I would say that I think would be welcome on there, and Samantha, I'd love your thoughts. You have created after, like, when we did all the programming stuff on attendance books. You weren't deliberating, but you did, create posts that sort of really gave a great sense of sort of what attendance means and use the slides that they use and how significant that is. I would consider that an appropriate thing to put on there, not about how we're voting, but just like, here's a presentation in front of an official body without an opinion. So I would consider that
Yeah.
an appropriate use.
and that's something that we need to get better at, very, very
Right.
honestly, like, whether it's an event. Or a school committee meeting, what's the follow-up after that
Yeah.
to get out publicly about
Yeah.
this is, this is happening, that could be anything from the school zones, was one example, which
Right.
we did some on, or that could be any topic, right?
Right,
Um,
so that's when I wish we, I wrote something, I wrote an attendance book saying, but your personal attendance book saying was far more detailed.
Yeah.
So, you have to be careful, because you can't be,
If you're, I mean. If anything comes up on this in terms of other school members, you guys gotta work through that, but if you're posting something that, we presented, I presented, whatever,
right,
Public record.
yeah, right, that's very safe, as long as you're not editorializing,
yes.
in a significant way, but you can be educating, this,
I think that's a great,
What I'm very conscious of is, A, not expressing an opinion
Right.
one way or the other.
yeah,
about
yeah,
it.
yeah, that's right, yeah.
Trying to be positive about the message that we're trying to put out there,
Right.
without being opinionated about it. And then making sure I don't say something, making sure I say something that can't come back on any of us to kind of, oh, well, he said that in his post, and it's, it's not really. I try to be vague enough where it's like, hey, get people interested in at least looking at it.
Yeah, exactly,
The
right.
amount of people that say, oh, I don't know anything about it, and well, we just had a presentation on it. It's
Yeah.
super
Right.
valuable.
and so that's
We
great.
go back and watch the video, you can see,
Right.
it's super- but the data's there for people to see.
Yeah.
If they just take the time to see it, and posting it on Facebook is just an easy way for people to go, oh, there it is, let me take a quick look.
And it's a benefit that we didn't have before COVID, because there were no real-time meeting links.
Right.
Before, like, it was literally a
Show up or
camera.
not. Oh, yeah.
There was a
Yeah.
camera that went to like channel 12.
Right, right.
So we
In a
have,
small room over here.
Yeah, right.
and so now we have this incredible resource to be like, hey, here's the information that we talked about. You might not be able to come at 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock on a
Yeah.
Wednesday night, but here is the link,
Here's the one.
and put it out there on the school committee page for people to be able to access.
Yeah.
It eliminates that, one of the things that, back to that animation stuff is, the guy said, hey, the goal of it is to kind of take the air out of a balloon sometimes with regards to hot button issues within the school system, you know, like you put together these animated videos, then people look at them, they're like, it takes away their, you know, that, oh, they're not schools, you know, they're not stuff on that, I don't know, if they're, oh, here's the video, here's what we're doing, and.
Right, and that's all about informing people, so they have full information, they actually hear or see what the schools are working on. I mean, you know, from us and from our students and staff, rather than just, you know, just conversation, that, you know, sometimes well informed, sometimes isn't, you know.
Mhm.
But if we're not informing people, then they should, you know, they'll talk about whatever they want, which is, you know, which is okay, you know, because we're not doing our job
Yeah,
of
right,
informing them,
exactly.
you know.
But
You know.
people do like these things, people do share them. and,
Yeah.
They really do, and it's, I mean, I find there's certain, you know, you'll see once you're on it, I mean, the theater folks are really great at posting, fishing and athletics are great at posting.
Yeah.
There are some PTOs that do not allow you to share,
I heard that,
and that's because they don't want, you know, kids' photos.
yeah.
So that's true,
Because they're closed groups or because,
they're closed groups.
oh, okay, yeah.
But I mean, that's a specific choice.
Yep.
Because they don't want the, you know, kids having, parents having given permission necessarily, they don't understand anything about that. So, you know, so it's.
when we're posting ours, just so you know, and if it's a PTO website, they may not be able to. But if it's a school posting, if a school sends like Dan Jewett, Principal Dan Jewett, he sends out, you know, things in a variety of ways. They've checked about whether or not those students can be, their photos can be shared, okay? I can't, if it's a PTO posting, I can't, you know, count, you know, I can't vouch for that. There's,
Right.
you know, so that's okay if they make a choice. But if something we're sharing, we're checking those before we post things. So
You're checking those.
because parents opt in or opt out for whether it's okay to share you know images or videos of their kids in, you know, a variety of forms. And so if they check, they don't want to share, we know that, and we'll check on public postings.
And so we don't know if PTOs check those, and or if a teacher has a personal Instagram page.
Teachers should also be checking that. They know they should not be adding things,
Okay.
posting that aren't. It's PTOs that may be taking a bunch of photos at a picnic, they
Yeah,
just wouldn't know, and
Yeah, right.
and we can't give them access.
right.
Which is why being in the kids in it is a closed group, for instance, like,
Yeah.
they don't, I can't share anything. That would be-
Yeah.
it's either group. Even though I'm trying to,
Yeah.
so, and that, so that also leads to a differential in schools getting.
I don't
diversity.
actually know if I don't know.
West Parish is sharing.
I can just say, like, when I go in and I've taken some pictures of schools, I check with the teachers, I check with the principals. One example was when the therapy dog came right here, I was going to each classroom and we get the list of which kids are on the restricted list. And the parents can have their kid on there for a lot of different reasons, they have to be very careful, things like that.
Yeah.
And shouldn't have to
Yeah, I think,
follow the protocol.
yeah, no, I think that's really, really wise.
Yeah,
I
it is.
don't think it's necessarily the ability of, you know, to do that.
Or don't even know if they should
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's like a policy thing that's interesting and
Right,
might be something, and when we start talking about like with the ways that we communicate.
PTOs,
Totally.
the PTOs, let's be clear, do not have the same limits that we have.
right.
Don't have the
Okay,
same
they
one?
don't have the same limits that we
No,
have. Okay, a PTO is a private organization posting things. You know, so they don't have the same limits.
But the thing
They,
is.
they, parents, I mean, we were the same way, you know, may not want their kid is posted, okay. The PTO and or the parent got to work it out, one way to do that is to make it not a shared group, so you just have to decide that for everybody,
Yeah.
okay? But he does have different rules. PTOs is more, it's more of a courtesy, more of a, from a request, where we're obligated,
Yeah,
you know,
right.
by law and regulation to make that distinction.
But I just want to say as an official, I mean, social media from the school committee, which is permitted to share from the PTOs, right? We're then sharing from an organization that, I mean, this is,
Yeah, no, I understand, right? So you've gotten photos from a PTO or from a parent.
Right.
Should you post them? Okay,
Or just a post, it's really right.
that's, we can probably help with that.
Right.
Okay.
That's a great question.
If you know names, it's gonna help a ton.
Right.
Okay, I mean, some folks do, some folks don't, okay? But no, that, right, taking photos from either a whatever, parent, family member, random person, or a PTO, Facebook page and repost and on the official,
Right.
is, then, that becomes, it's not murky, it's still very clear. We have to know that those parents have given permission.
So I just have a question from today. I think today we posted something from Code from a trip down to the science museum.
Museum sign.
Museum of Science.
Yes, I did a share.
Right.
Yeah,
Right, but those shares, from my perspective, don't come, they only come from the PTOs. They don't, the schools don't have official Facebook pages.
I don't think, I mean, I
don't
think
think-
it's the PTOs. that
Right,
do
so
it.
all of the official.
No, but hold on, Dan posts things all the time. He
He
gives
does.
photos all the time.
He has his newsletter, and he
Yeah.
also, Dan is one of the people that posts on the,
It's a PTO.
but I think it's the Plumco PTO, he has privilege to post. on
Okay,
the-
we're still looking at that, yeah.
Right, that's, so right.
Yeah, anything, let's be clear.
I figure,
If Dan Druid's putting it up, I'm absolutely confident.
I can't see if it's there. I don't see.
That's what I'm saying is you're getting, if you're getting any this group, sorry, is getting any photos that you're posting of kids, okay? You've got, because it's a school committee Facebook, you've got to vet it, okay?
So that's a
Now-
new rule.
Well,
I'm just saying that's,
right, yeah, it's a new procedure, okay? I mean, right, it's new information, okay? If you're getting that from, like, Gloucester Fisherman, for example, okay? I think they're following that, okay? The Gloucester, Performing Arts should be following that, okay? And so, like, if it's, a school Facebook page or school website, it's definitely following that, okay? But if you're getting them from, non-official, and that includes PTO, then you gotta check with someone. So.
Yeah.
Now, Mike knows, because Dan's sharing something on, I guess, what is the PTO Facebook page, but he's also sharing them with Mike, and so then that's how,
so we just have to come up with another, this isn't how it's been working, just to put it out there, so. It's because part of it, you weren't here when the policy was written, I don't think, but it was that PTO or an official body that we can share from. So when the Gloucester Public Schools Facebook page wasn't so vibrant, I've just been sharing directly from the PTOs without any sense, just of what they're doing.
yeah,
So that feels a little risky to me at this point.
PTO is not an official body of the schools. I think
Well-
everyone, I mean, you,
I can look at the way it's written is, I mean, they are considered in our policy. I just
An
read it.
extension of,
Yeah, that's just,
fall under the umbrella of.
if those PTO Facebook pages, okay, are checking and they, can do this with the school,
right,
I just don't know if they are, about, and making sure that those students that they're posting photos of have their families granted permission, and it's fine, because they're going through their process, okay? There's two different things here about PTOs being official body and what's in your policy,
so I'm gonna read the policy.
right? But go on, yeah.
Information, so among the things that are, that may be included on our social media account, messages posted to an official social media account must be, and here's D, information from Gloucester High School and or other Gloucester Public Schools periodicals, as well as other Gloucester Public Schools social media accounts, including parent-teacher accounts.
So even though that's in there, you still have to abide by law. Okay, that, and law says that the public schools of Gloucester Public Schools, you know, can only post, images like this is of students if, with permission, or granted by the family, okay? So you're very viable to do that, but you still have to, comply with the law.
I guess I have some questions though, because if we have organizations say like, backyard growers come in and they come and take pictures of students. And they are invited by the Gloucester Public Schools to be there. Are they then checking with the school?
They certainly should be.
Okay, so then why shouldn't the
I-
PTO be?
No, she then saying PTO should be.
Oh,
No.
No, he's
So
saying that the PTO is its own entity.
they're, it's about who's, well, I mean, when I think of backyard growers, I think of like official partnership on our schools with our students, that sort of thing, okay?
And
Right,
PTO is that
Right,
too, right? I would say.
true,
And so I'm trying to just draw a parallel between those two
Right,
organizations.
that's a good question. Right, so I think,
So it's sanctioned, it's a group sanctioned by the Gloucester Public Schools, so I would assume that the PTO would need to check the do not post list before they start posting pictures of students. That to
Yeah,
me
yeah,
feels like the only way. In a world where there's social media and people share things all the time, I think the PTO needs to be held to the same standards as.
And every.
Well, no, but-
organization on it.
hold on a second, I mean, we should get clear on this, okay?
Yeah.
Because I believe, and again, just we check on this, right? That PTO as a private organization does not have the same level of responsibility on that posting of photos that we do. Okay,
Yeah.
so because think about it. Any organization can post any photos they want. Okay,
Nobody's allowed
a
to-
private
Yeah,
private
it's our
one.
buildings, like if they're in our buildings and then they're being, kids are being. So I'm thinking about this, like if I'm thinking like worst case scenario, there's a student. Who has,
Let's not think the worst case.
No,
scenario,
no,
okay?
no.
Because-
not worst case scenario, but I'm
but-
just
but
giving.
typical example.
Right, like they say
scenario.
there's a restraining order, someone doesn't want to know there's a kid in our schools.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get it.
PTO posts a picture of that student.
Yeah.
I would think the Gloucester Public Schools is liable for that because it's within our system. Like
Well-
it's a group that's in our building taking
Yeah,
pictures of our students.
I-
Same thing
right.
with backyard growers, same thing with any other group that comes into our building.
This is why I don't like to use the most egregious, dangerous example, okay? Because that's the most unlikely example. There's way before that, is there's complying with the law. Okay, just that. And you comply with the law, not just because of the worst example. But anyway, I think so
Well, I
let's
think
deal.
what I'm saying is that it's our job to protect students, and there's a reason why somebody doesn't want their kid's student there. And it could just be privacy issues,
Yeah,
and
right,
there
exactly,
could be
right.
also like true and real
So let's do this.
safety issues.
Yeah, so let's do this. Let's nail this down.
Yeah.
And provide you folks with clarity.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
I
that's
think in the
where-
meantime, we just don't post from the PTO.
Right, but if you, that's my only question, but can we go to the hospital? Because you also do a thing posting that there.
I have, yeah.
Yeah.
but remember, if we get a photo, we're checking.
Okay, so even back there.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Okay,
mean,
great.
I met with backyard growers and my understanding is that they check the names, that they know, that they have backgrounds where they should be, and I'm pretty sure that they said that they checked with the schools to make sure. It's a huge group, you know.
If it's on the school page, we can post.
So that's what we're gonna sit with then.
Yeah.
Is if it's on the school page, we can post it. Do you think it is safe, I mean, the two organizations within the schools that I post from a lot, 3, Gilmender, but that's no photos, Fisherman's Athletics, and Gloucester Theater.
Yeah, those are,
Okay,
yeah.
So
absolutely.
those are the 3 that post the
Yeah,
most, and
right.
so those. And I will just say to you, one thing I've done to sort of get around, the Beaman thing, if I'm in an event, either I ask the parent, are you on this list, or I take pictures with no faces.
Right,
Right, exactly, right, yeah.
Like distant field day.
Right.
yeah, yeah.
So there are ways, but it's, oh, well, this is important, actually, really. Great, so let's nail that down. So now you know. Look for what he posts.
Yeah.
And I know you're great with the fish and athletic stuff too, and that's a great one, and tryouts and all that stuff, and our meetings and all those things are really significant. I'm not just dumping this on you, I'm just
No.
telling you what it is and how it's used. Great. Well, this is good. This is why we should be.
No, and it's another example of how we can't communicate in the way other organizations can,
Right,
okay? Because it's much more complicated to, I mean, there's more of a process, you
right.
know? An organization can snap a photo and it doesn't matter, you know? So that's just another reason that, you know, it makes it more complicated, basically.
Right,
Unfortunately.
and I think it's really helpful though, to have that discussion and to really
Oh, definitely.
understand that and dig into it a little bit. Because as we push to communicate more regularly and more creatively, like we're gonna come up against this. So, and there's ways around, I mean, there's ways to do it.
Did you both, right, both, yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah. All right, does anyone have anything else, from this very informative meeting? All right, so, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second,
Laura? Yes. Bill?
Yes.
Sam?
yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, folks.
We are in the fair one.
Right.